Dungeons & Dragons 2024 edition is just right around the bend. Are you ready for it? Well, it's coming really soon. I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and not just about, the particulars of the system and how it's going to be, but really just the RPG landscape for the foreseeable future. So here's how things seem to me. This is what I've been observing. I've also been reading through the playtest materials, the Unearthed Arcana PDFs and whatnot. So these are my predictions. Looks like it's going to be a 5.5E. So let's just call it 5.5. It's very similar to the shift from 3E to 3.5. Maybe we could even make, liken it to when it shifted from first edition to second edition. It's going to be backwards compatible. It's not a complete remake. It's not a completely new system. So some things are going to be exactly the same or very similar. Other things will be changed though. Hopefully things will be improved. Hopefully is the key word there. So how do I think things are going to turn out? Here are my predictions. First prediction. Some things will be better, but a few things will be worse. The improvements are really going to be in character options and probably a Dungeon Master's Guide, really getting into the specifics of the system itself. I do think there will be a number of improvements there. Other things won't really be improvements. They're just kind of a new take, a new approach, just kind of shuffling things around, give some, lose some, kind of a give and take scenario. A few things will be worse though. And really, I should probably say, some things will continue to worsen, and I'll get into that as I go here. So at least in terms of the actual game system, player options, DM options, there will be more improvement there than not. Connect this to my next prediction, that things are going to be overall a little bit simpler and clearer, but also more contrived. We can already see this in the way that certain things are getting worded, like the giant hits the target, let's say the giant hits with its weapon. The target takes such and such damage and must succeed on the strength saving throw or have the prone condition. Nobody talks like that. It's contrived. It is clearer, but it's just awkward.
Have some coffee and cake. Have some!
The player characters are going to be the only ones who have just regular, good old standard spell casting. All the NPCs and all the monsters just have this trimmed down, simplified variant form of spell casting. I guess that could be simpler for DMs, but it just has strange implications on the whole game world, the whole fantasy world. Nobody out there, all the NPCs, the heads of a wizard school or heads of bard colleges or druid groves and archmages and liches and rakshasas and arcanoloths and all these classic spellcasting NPCs and monsters, just no one has regular spellcasting anymore. Only a player character does. Certain characters, particularly like martial characters and warriors, get weapon mastery. They can cause additional effects or unique effects along with the weapon damage, but you can get the weapon mastery just at first level. How are you a master of something just at first level? And you can swap out your masteries on a long rest, so you somehow forget what you have mastered, or you just choose to ignore what you have mastered. Again, it's clear, it's more concise kind of mechanically, but it lacks in believability, actual human feeling, congruency. Clearer but more contrived. That's the best way I can put that. All right, on to the next prediction. Appeal to younger gamers. I see this trend. We've all seen this trend. I think it's going to continue. We've all been observing this for a while. It really started with 4th edition. It kind of reversed back and got a bit more mature and an appeal to kind of all the generations and ages and tastes at the beginning of 5e. And there was this promise at the beginning of 5e that it was an edition for everybody and all the different styles of D&D and all the different generations and the different types of fantasy. But that promise really was not delivered on. And I think this trend is just going to continue. And I'm talking about, the way the characters are handled and the world building and the art style. All of that is going to continue with this trend of wanting to appeal to the younger gamers, to the teens, to those in their 20s, early 20s, trying to tap into things that are cool and trendy. It reminds me of the way that like superhero movies, Marvel movies are going, and Disney films and Star Wars and World of Warcraft. And that's not even the best example, but just video games, video game trends. It's going to have that sort of feeling to it. It's going to have gimmicks, really. They're gimmicks. They're gimmicks that seem cool and trendy, and it makes the game more appealing, less harsh, softer, lighter, less mature. Now, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to make a version of D&D that is more suited towards a younger audience, both in the tone and the mechanics and the art style and all that. That's in and of itself is fine, but you also need to provide an option for the more mature audience, for the more experienced gamers, for older generations, for people that don't want this pop, trendy Marvel style. So let's just connect this with the next prediction. The style of 5.5 is essentially PG-13 Disney. And I mean modern Disney. I'm not talking about the classics. Modern Disney, everything's really flashy, it's really fast, it's always changing, wow, it's really fun, there's so much fun. But at the same time, it's also shallow, and it's also highly manipulated by modern day social trends. The characters rarely ever seem like real people. The fantasy world doesn't feel like Once Upon a Time or a galaxy far, far away. It just seems like people cosplaying in modern day America. Ironically, while the style suffers from having too much of the real world in it, it also suffers from being too unrealistic in other ways. Characters use shields that are made of like 3-inch thick solid steel, or they don't wear helmets at all, which is one of the most crucial pieces of armor. Party members are always depicted as getting along with each other so happily, everything's fine. It's like something out of a Pepsi commercial or a Cocomelon cartoon. Visually, this style is complex, it's colorful, it does have energy, it has this really high level of detail. In many ways, it is technically impressive, but it lacks personality. It lacks in unique styles. Everything is just kind of the same. And there's this desensitizing effect that it causes in us. And related to all that, my next prediction is corporate politics, corporate philosophy. 5.5e will continue with the trend of everything being safe and softer and sterilized and pre-approved and inoffensive.
Okay, welcome to Wayne's World. Party on, Garth.
I guess.
Again, there's a great irony in that, because that neglects and alienates and offends everybody that doesn't have that same perspective and same opinion. The game tries evermore to not offend anyone. Evermore, it loses its edge, it loses its grit, it loses its depth. The soul is muffled and neglected bit by bit. And in place of depth, we get breadth. 100 multiverse crossovers, but not a single one of them causes you to fall in love with it. It's like this endless buffet of fast food, but not a single fine restaurant. We have to call them species instead of races. Can't use key points anymore, we have to say discipline points. Half-orcs come from humans and orcs getting married. Oh wait, no, actually, you can't even have half-orcs anymore. You can't have half-elves anymore. Those things are offensive to people. Now, are these words and these ideas connected to actual social problems? Sure, yes, I would say that they are. But do you know what they're also connected to? Actual humanity, heart, poetry. And I mean that in the broad sense, like the poetics, the drama of it all, the artistry of it all. They're words that have meaning. They're words that have some depth to them, that have some style to them. They're classic. They're timeless, really, is what they are. How have we got to this point that a game about facing mortal terrors and deadly threats is also supposed to be safe and inoffensive? Can't you see how incoherent that is? We're delving into dungeons and facing dragons, but at the same time, we're so worried about words and ideas hurting our feelings. Well, I will tell you how we've got to this point. When we dethrone the higher aims of classic values, of timeless archetypes, and of true artistic endeavors, what we get in their place are things like politics and social trends and the corporate machine that just hungers for profit. Instead of us trying to raise the bar keeps getting lowered, and the aim is ever more towards the lowest common denominator. The most pop appeal, the most sterile and inoffensive, the most likely to increase the value of the corporation's stocks. And just to be clear, I'm not against money. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm against greed. I'm against the love of money replacing the love of people. All right, let's move on to the next prediction. The official virtual tabletop is going to be decently good. It's not going to be amazing. It will have its issues and its shortcomings, but it will compete well against the other options out there like Roll20 and Foundry and whatnot. There really isn't an all-around fantastic VTT out there. Supply and demand, my friends. If there was a greater demand for a fantastic VTT and there was more profit in it, then we would get one. But I think Wizards of the Coast VTT is going to be pretty good. It's going to be pretty user-friendly. And I think they're going to put some thought into the business model behind it. Probably is going to have a subscription, so that is going to make it profitable, which means it will get developments and updates and should have some standard of quality to it. And I mean, I guess that's fine having a monthly subscription. I mean, I pay a monthly subscription to the Forge to web host me to run the Foundry, and I paid for the Foundry. So, I mean, if you want things to have good quality and be maintained, you do have to support it with your money. Now, exactly how fair or how appropriate Wizards of the Coast business model will be, the subscription pricing and stuff like that, I can't speak to that. It may be great or it may not be so great, but I do think overall the VTT is going to be decently good. My next prediction, D&D will remain the top RPG. Again, this is like the RPG landscape in the foreseeable future. Despite problems and despite controversies and despite some people feeling disenfranchised, D&D will still be the top RPG out there. It has so much brand recognition, it's so well established, and at the end of the day, the core of D&D as a system is a really good system. There are other RPGs that are better at certain things, but there's no game that overall outshines D&D in general. Some people do like other RPGs better than D&D. Some people do think there are RPGs that are overall better than D&D, of course. But I mean overall, like in worldwide terms. In broad terms, no other RPG is going to outdo D&D for the foreseeable future. And this is related to my next prediction. Many people migrate to other games, and then some of them will come back to D&D. I might have said this before in another video, it's worth repeating. It's really difficult to come up with a great idea. A great new idea is a very rare thing. And I know that a lot of times an idea that comes to you seems like it's great, but it's probably not. It's very, very rare. To go along with that, it's also rare to find a business that has a great business model, that can implement their business, that can distribute it, that can market it. Just the whole business side of things, that's also very difficult. So we're talking about two very difficult, challenging, rare things that both have to come together and function in unison. That's just not something that happens every day. Some people will naturally go try other RPGs, and some of them will make a switch. Their system of choice will change to something else. And at the same time, others, after trying other games for a while, will come back to D&D because of its all-around good quality. It has ease of play, and perhaps the biggest reason D&D just has the biggest amount of players. It has the most activity and engagement and the most going on. It's really viable to get into a D&D campaign, which matters a lot in an activity that's pretty complex and requires a lot of personal investment. So until the day comes that someone comes up with a really amazing, innovative new type of game, plus is able to get the business piece of it well functioning, it's just going to continue this way. It's going to have, D&D and RPGs in general. We're going to have these periods of stagnation and then these periods of like new energy and just kind of shuffling things around. Some things get improved, some things get worse. Overall, we just kind of small scale inch towards hopefully something better. So what's the bottom line? D&D 2024 edition and the RPG landscape in the short to medium term future. This new edition of the game will be better in some ways, but then in a few other ways, problems on a deeper level are going to be continuing. And these are problems that have been kind of festering for a long time. Those are going to continue, and they're really going to have us dancing right at the edge of the collapse of the so-called golden age of tabletop gaming. So what am I going to do about all this? Well, I'm just going to keep doing my thing. I'm going to keep sticking to the inspiration that guides me. I'm not going to jump on anybody's political bandwagon. I'm not going to go following the whims of social trends. I'm just going to keep sticking to the timeless qualities that really inspire me, that really move me. I'm going to try to just stay true to mythic storytelling. I'm not jumping onto the fanboy train, but I'm also not jumping onto the hate train against D&D or against Wizards of the Coast. I don't want to build my whole brand around just criticizing other people's work. I will still do critiques and ranking videos and things like that at times, but really what I love is creating my own thing. That's really what is in my heart of hearts. And who knows, maybe I'll try creating my own RPG. Thanks everyone for watching, and an extra special thanks to my supporters over on Patreon. You guys really give me that extra fire of motivation. And if you, like you watching, are curious about my Patreon, the things that I produce there, the RPG content, the exclusive rewards, go check out the link down in the video description. All right, everyone, until next time, wish you all the best. May your adventures be many.